Hello, I'm Mike Wilson, CEO and founder of Ditto, our marketing and business development practice focused on technology. I'm delighted to be joined today by Ollie van Lansberg-Sadie, CEO and founder at prime cryptocurrency broker BCB Group, and Richard Crook, CEO and founder at LAB577, who create applications at the intersection of emerging technology and financial services. Hi, good morning, guys.
Good morning, Mike.
Good morning, Mike.
Yeah, guys, and thank you very much for getting away from your busy desks and joining me on the phone. So, guys, we caught up a few weeks ago at R3's Corda, a fantastic conference. I think it was a super couple of days. Now, at the event, Ollie and Richard, you featured in a podcast dedicated to digital assets, and we spoke about how DASL is digitizing traditional finance assets to open up in new markets. But it's 100 days since BCB went live with LAB577's DASL. And I thought it'd be great to get you guys together just to have a chat about DASL, have a chat about Corda, maybe some reflections on the CordaCon conference. So it's been a whirlwind year, guys. So first of all, you revealed the news that investors can now trade ETH and British pounds on the same blockchain. And Ollie, BCB Group went live with LAB577's digital asset share ledger. Can you just recap for our listeners here just how the partnership came about? And Richard, if you can start, and then we'll hand over to Ollie.
Surely, Mike. What we found in BCB was a CEO, Ollie, who understood the vision, and it resonated with him, where he understood the vision of a public blockchain to provide a market for the many in the capital market space. For our side, that is really all you need as a startup, is that kind of pioneer client who gets it.
And then, Ollie, in terms of your partnership with Richard and LAB577, had you always thought about Corda? How did this come about?
So I met one of LAB577's directors, Fuzz, about 12 years ago when we were both working at an investment bank. He was always on, the track of redefining not just the architecture, but the whole approach to what was then the kind of credit risk and settlements infrastructure. Fuzz introduced me to Richard a couple of years ago, and it was at that point that I discovered that Corda was being developed by this R3 Foundation as an answer to the question, how do we make this whole financial settlement system and this whole financial infrastructure more efficient, smarter, kind of aligned with blockchain technology, not necessarily natively blockchain, but along those veins. And what I discovered with Richard and Fuzz was a team who are not only dedicated to understanding the market, but also at the very leading edge of being able to deliver on those ideas. So it was very exciting on a personal and a professional level, and it was clear at that point that our journeys would be together.
So that's great, Ollie. Thanks. Ollie, would you just remind our audience exactly what BCB do and the BCB Group, and then Richard, I'm going to ask you the same question about LAB577 DASL, and then we're going to go on and talk about the broader market.
No problem at all. So, thanks for introducing us as a cryptocurrency prime broker, and that's exactly where we were positioned at the beginning of this year. But that identity has actually shifted this year, actually largely as a result of this technology. So now we're positioning ourselves as a business banking challenger. So it's actually had using this tech has really transformed our entire identity. So what we do very basically is we provide a place to store and move money and digital assets, agnostic of their status as real money or digital assets. It's a payments network, it's a bank account, and it's a place where you can issue new digital assets.
Great. And same question to you, Richard, is LAB577 and DASL?
Digital asset shared ledger, DASL, is providing institutions with the ability to reimagine how value is moved and managed, creating new markets for previously illiquid assets and reducing the risk and control cost using digital assets. We're working with a number of clients on tokenization, and that's at the heart of that digital asset shared ledger, digital asset tokens, whatever you want to call them. These clients are regulated, working on primary issuance or secondary trading of digital assets, and they've found something in digital asset shared ledger that lets them meet and beat that challenge for their clients.
Oh, fantastic. Now, I know we're going to speak a little bit more in detail around DASL, around BCB's use of DASL, but before we get into that, guys, I'd like to get your perspectives on the broader market and our market view. Look, it's clear to all observers the market's changing. It's shifting to digitization. You just touched on it there. You got some other clients in this arena too, Richard. So this year we've seen massive tech firms proposing electronic wallets like Facebook Libra, I guess. But what do these announcements actually mean in terms of regulation and future payment mechanisms? You know, if you could give a perspective from your firms as well as a broader general market view on adoption, that would be great. And I think let's take that first with Ollie.
Great question, Mike. I think the macroeconomic picture is clearly one in which there is cost compression, where there is pressure on the banking system in general, and it's still very expensive to go into the market and issue assets in your own company in the form of IPOs. These trends are being met with these kind of tech-based solutions, and I think what the market trend is showing, that digital assets like what Libra is trying to do as a basket of world currencies, and what multiple initiatives out there are trying to do, clearly indicates that the future is digital assets, digital money. It's not going away. So we can either choose to engage at this stage, the foot of the mountain, or we could get far behind. So we're very excited to be engaged right at the start of this this global shift to digitization.
That's a really great point you're making. I want to turn to Richard just to pick that up. So this bearish environment. I mean, you talk about a different route to capital and IPOs. You just have to look at the huge rise in corporate bond issuance since the crash of 2008 to where we sit today. So what's your overall market view, Richard, on adoption regulation and the backdrop to digitalization that you see?
So I think the backdrop is obviously twofold. The regulation that we saw coming in 2008 has raised the bar on conduct risk, and that has meant an entrenchment by a lot of the incumbents into their customers and clients. Adds to that, we've seen the advent of or innovation of Bitcoin with cryptocurrencies and digital money, providing a new technology, call it blockchain or distributed ledger, moving us now from what we did was paper to electronic, and we got rid of the outcry traders. We're now moving from electronic to digital, and that digitization of the financial industry is coming at a breakneck speed. We're watching people like Uber and Facebook and Google. Each week there's a new one of these large tech firms coming into retail banking, and we always talk about them coming into the banking space. But actually, as Ollie is alluding to, what's actually happening is the banking industry more broadly is being turned inside out, and what was in the was only able to be done by banks and financial institutions is now being taken from them, and those services are being done at the periphery of the perimeter or actually outside the perimeter. And just as you described, the emergence of or expansion of the bond market is purely because corporates are working out that they can issue their own debt. They don't need a large investment bank to do it. Something like digital asset shared ledger is exactly part of that puzzle. It's why we brought it to market. We could see that tokenization was coming to the market, coming through, and that's why we positioned ourselves to help BCB and others improve the space.
Oh, excellent. Well, I think that I'm going to return to you, Ollie, because it's a nice segue back to your framing of BCB as a disruptive bank challenger, and just picking up from what Richard left off there, just what has DASL enabled you, just as the platform, but also the type of services that a disruptive bank challenger will be offering.
Yeah, absolutely. And before I go into how DASL's helping our clients and how that enables us as a disruptive banking challenger, I wanted to add a couple of just some color to Richard's comments there about the the banking and the regulatory trends, which is that what we have at the moment is a bit of an arms race between the digitization of assets and money and regulators who are trying to keep up with it and give it the proper channels and frameworks to work within. But what we have in this arms race is not a case of mutually assured destruction. It's a case of mutually assured, massive global efficiency gains. I should compress that into a smarter soundbite, but I think the point is that regs are catching up to banking and to this whole digitization trend, and that's very encouraging.
I think the regs are catching up to the needs of the market. Yeah.
So, focusing on the practical matter, how does DASL help our clients? What does it enable them to do? In the simplest language, it allows them to move money quicker, cheaper, and more robustly. It provides a framework that they can go to the market to raise money for their own endeavors in the form of, tokenized digital securities. And it helps our clients indirectly through us by enabling us to scale to their requirements. So as their velocity and volume increase, by doing it on a highly efficient backbone, we're able to scale and meet their demand, which of course delivers value directly to their clients. So that cascading effect is being felt in real time now with our clients using this live, and the potential is enormous.
And so, yeah, I mean, you touched earlier about increased volume growth, increased adoption, and these client benefits. And then, Richard, back to you, then from seeing how BCB are kind of out in the wild, using DASL out in the market, bringing this benefit to their clients. Maybe just share with our audience, as your product develops, what lessons have you learned from DASL going live with BCB, and also maybe any standout moments the last 100 days. Has it all been plain sailing?
So I think it's worth recognising, or fair to say, that no plan survives contact with a client. And that said, the standout moment was when I watched both the BCB and DASL teams come together to integrate their different components. And I think that was as much to do with the teams and the technologies as the technologies that made that a standout moment for me. We're working with a number of clients to bring them onto the public Corda network. BCB was the first broker to come onto that network, the first to bring cash to the Corda network, and they've therefore completed the one thing we've been looking for, which is cash on ledger. So that's the standout moment for me.
And all plain sailing. I mean, I know that some of our audience will have a technical hat as well, but maybe just touch on the infrastructure and technology piece for our listeners.
Yeah, I think, as I said, no plan survives contact with a client. It's not usually the client. The people are usually proactive and wishing to deliver, especially if you get the contracts right. The big thing for us was integrating into ClearBank, integrating into the crypto ledgers, ETH and Bitcoin and Ripple, getting onto the Corda network, working with the Corda Foundation to achieve that. Those are the sorts of integrations where your plans don't tend to survive contact, and therefore you have to adapt and move as you go through. But as you say, we've been very pleased with each of those partners, be it ClearBank, be it the Corda Foundation, or any of the work that we've done with ETH or Bitcoin or Ripple to get it to work.
Well, I think quite rightly, thank you, Richard. I'd like to return to Ollie and frame the same question to you, Ollie. What lessons have you learned? 100 days has just gone by in a whirlwind, in a flash. Has there been any standout moments from you over the last 100 days? And what have you learned about DASL going live for your business?
I'd like to echo Richard's point that about making plans at the outset and then actually entering the wild and getting the software out there and getting people using it. And what has happened is that our clients have driven what we've needed to develop here. We set out with a very specific, a general vision of getting everybody onto this Corda backbone, but also some specific things which we thought were important at the time. What's happened over the last 100 days is that some parts of that have really stood out and have got a lot more energy and a lot more investment of time and effort than other parts. And one thing that's really stood out in this period is how this Corda DASL-backed settlements network, it specifically meets the needs of the blockchain industry, which is really hard to bank, for even the most regulated or excellent projects. And I think this has driven our redefinition from prime broker to business banking challenger, and highlighted the fact that if we can just provide a better global settlements network that is digital friendly, then we're ahead in the race, and we're there's a lot of benefit for us and for our clients.
Well, it's certainly even the core positioning of BCB, and I think even now talking about this kind of global settlements network that's digital friendly, and this is almost like kind of core infrastructure and that kind of robustness. Fabulous. Okay, guys, so look, what's next? I'd love to maybe share with our listeners what exciting projects you have coming up in 2020. We're just a couple of weeks away really from year end. So maybe if we start with Richard, maybe back to you, Richard, some projects and stuff. What can people expect in 2020 from LAB577 and DASL?
So DASL now have a wide range of partners who can provide brokerage, secondary trading of private and public instruments using digital assets. There's a securitization of assets to tokens that partners can do, all of which they're using digital asset shared ledger to work with their clients to deliver on any of the above. So from our perspective, it's going to be an exciting 2020.
Great stuff. And final words from yourself, Ollie, what's coming up? What does the next decade have in store for BCB Group?
2020 will be interesting. I think the 2020s will be even more interesting. For BCB, 2020 is when we complete our Series A round of funding in January, and we really give the kind of investment in tech and operations that we need to get this network spread even wider. So that's a very exciting process, and if anybody is interested in what we're doing on the Series A fundraise front, then do get in touch. In terms of the 2020s in general, I think we need to brace ourselves for the wholesale digitization of markets. We need to be ready for a very different picture in 2029, 2030, where what we understand as financial markets today is a very different animal to what's going to be in the next 10 years.
Fantastic. Well, listen, guys, thank you so much for taking time out of your busy days to jump on the line. We're all primed to maybe catch up again in 100 days' time, end of Q1, post this Series A. Ollie would be great. Richard?
Be welcome to. I look forward to coming back with a further update.
That's fantastic. Well, keep us updated on any news you got, guys. You continue to grow BCB Group and to DASL. So thanks, listeners. If you'd like to learn more about LAB577 and the BCB Group, follow them across LinkedIn and Twitter and their websites. So you can start a conversation with directly. All details on the screen now. I know Richard's and Ollie's inbox is always open. You can also check out the Digital Assets podcast that we recorded live at CordaCon 2019 on Radio Ditto. Search for the download Digital Assets CordaCon 2019 link. That's all from me, Mike Wilson, your host. And thank you very much, Richard Crook. And thank you very much, Ollie Van Lansberg-Sadie from BCB. Thanks, guys.
It's been amazing. Thanks, Mike.